What's going on? I'm Isaac.
I'm Ed.
We're two friends growing up.
Yep.
We grew up in Ridgewood, New Jersey, and I don't know. I met Ed for the most part in high school. I think we flew
Freshman
around.
year Spanish.
Freshman year Spanish class. That worked out well considering
Yeah.
how fluent I am now. That's a
Me too.
joke. But over the last year or so, we've been talking primarily about real estate and starting businesses, and we have talked a lot about starting a podcast, broadcasting ourselves a little bit because we talk about all sorts of stuff. I think we can go a little bit into like why, or what we're doing, but why we're doing this. But I guess I'll start out.
Sure, go.
So I currently work for, currently work in the real estate industry and technology specifically. I lead software engineering teams for a title insurance company, valuation company, and settlement services company. But this is a recording and podcast that I'm doing on my own without sponsorship from my company. And I've been working with entrepreneurs for a long time, specifically in the city of Detroit, but now also talking with Ed. I'll let Ed talk a little bit about his journey so far.
So I work for a company called Culture Estate, where I'm a real estate professional. As part of my role, I am a realtor. I am also a hard money lender, which I do outside of that. And I'm also an investor myself, which actually is what brought me here full circle. So I bought my first investment property back in 2013, I believe, and it was a multifamily.
It's a long time.
At the time, I was working at JP Morgan. Since I've left JP Morgan and I worked for a hard money company most recently, that was my first big step into going full time with real estate. So I was a loan officer selling hard money loans, and I was doing flips at the same time. And I just was like, hey, I want to do this full time, and took the plunge and basically went full time with Culture Estate, which really means that using my real estate license to benefit myself and other investors in any way, shape or form for investing.
Awesome. And I think why we have kind of started to do this about a year ago, actually to like around this time in April, Ed and I kind of just randomly started talking about real estate and how both of us were in the industry and how Ed wanted to kind of go out on his own. And at the time, I wasn't thinking about going out on my own. I'm still not out on my own, but I had spent a lot of time working with team members and helping them establish goals and trying to think about what is success for them. And so I started kind of being a soundboard, I feel like, to you. And it's been a really great time. I mean, the last year or so, I've had a lot going on in my life and spending time doing it over the phone for half the time and now in person for half the time. I got to see you grow a lot. But I think, why did you decide it made sense to kind of talk to me about this rather than talk to somebody from the outside?
I guess, it was just that, it was that one night, I believe we were hanging out here at my apartment, and we were just kind of talking about our careers, and you were talking about the business experiences that you had through the bike shop, I believe. It was like you guys are fixing the bikes. And I was just very interested in your background and, specifically like the, details of that you were doing and how you had started that business. And I was very interested because I had always wanted to own my own business. It had always been a dream of mine. And you were kind of doing that through the nonprofit angle. And so I think we just started talking, and you were like, hey, look, if you want any advice, let's start talking. So I just felt it was a good idea to talk to somebody who knew me well and kind of knew some of the insides of my life. And
Sure.
that also wasn't necessarily my wife, as much as I love her. But, I just felt like people who are so close to you are going to kind of tell you the things you want to hear than the things you need to hear. Mm-hmm. Even though, she is pretty good at separating that. But in your own mind, you're always going to think that, like when you hear something positive, it's like, oh, you're just saying that. You're just saying that.
That's true.
And that was kind of the feeling that I had. So I was looking for A, to learn, and B, to just be able to tell somebody who had some different experiences and get an outside point of view.
I think one thing like that I've picked up over the last year or so is, I mean, you've been, like you said, you've been kind of in the real estate sphere since 2013. I've only been in the real estate industry since 2015, since the beginning of 2015. And so I feel like we had this common language that we could begin to talk about. We didn't really have to teach each other that much in terms of, you know, what is a HUD, or what's the position or purpose of a loan officer. I mean, you know, with hard money lending, you had to kind of tell me a few talking points, or you had to kind of, some buzzwords came out that I didn't fully understand. But for the most part, you know, property and real estate are going to be the same thing in most of the industries. And I thought it was a pretty easy transition overall in terms of that's baby. By the way, which is also crazy. Ed had a kid last year, right before we started, or right after we started doing this. And I feel like we'll get to that story eventually. I don't know. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, so why don't you tell a little bit? I mean, you're in, besides that, your job is like a more of a real estate technology based job. You never had a technology background, right? I mean, you were telling me today actually that this is what got you into real estate technology. You were telling me about the maps that you used to draw.
Yep.
Because you were going to school for urban development, I believe, right?
Urban planning,
Urban planning.
But so yeah, I mean, I spent most of my adult life after college living in Michigan, and specifically the city of Detroit. As Ed mentioned, we grew up here in northern New Jersey, but when I was in urban planning school, I found pretty quickly that creating maps using data, especially census data, but really any type of data, was far more interesting than writing out master plans. And so it wasn't too long after I graduated with my master's in urban planning that I started looking for jobs with more of a technology focus. And I worked for a small startup doing marketing stuff, but I really liked that technology culture. It was great. It was very open. Ideas were flowing. It was fast paced. It was exciting. And then after that first job, I worked for a nonprofit helping other people start businesses. I opened a co-working space with a nonprofit in Detroit, and that was great because I got to meet a ton of entrepreneurs trying to grow small businesses with very little assistance other than, you know, somebody trying to connect the dots. And I was just helping people, you know, be in touch and talk to each other so that they could help their ideas grow. And then I went into a boot camp for a few months learning some software engineering skills, and ultimately I got hired by my company today, first as a software quality assurance analyst, and then I got promoted into a team leader position, and then I've been a team leader now for almost 3 years. So I've been helping my team members and my business, or the company that I work for, grow from a technology perspective because it's so prevalent these days, especially in the real estate industry. And I know you and I were just talking because I mean, I'll let you tell a little bit about the property you recently purchased, but the reason Ed brought it up is because I was like, hey, have you looked at this map data to see how you could potentially prevent some of the issues that maybe you'd run into in the future? So that's a little bit about my journey. Now I commute back and forth between New York City and Detroit because I love both cities and my family's here, but a lot of my connections are in the city of Detroit or in the Detroit metro region.
Speaking of Detroit, you actually own some property yourself, right?
I did. I bought a condo a few years ago. Have had some fun stories from that. Nothing too major, but I've learned a lot about property types like condos, HOAs. I've learned about the Airbnb experience, both positively and negatively. And now I'm a landlord, which was not expected. But now I'm learning about the property management side of things because I have a tenant who actually I like the tenant. He picks out problems, and then I work with my property management company to fix them. And now I'm just kind of learning that side of the business, and it's been interesting because around where I grew up, like our families bought homes, and that was about all they did. Like my family didn't own any other property outside of their primary residence. Eventually, they bought a second property, but it wasn't meant for rental. Certainly not an investment piece. And we always grew up learning that your home was your best investment, and
Yeah.
I think both of us have found that that's not
It's
necessarily
really not,
true.
I wouldn't even really call it an asset anymore. It's probably more of a liability.
Yeah,
An
especially
asset, so.
especially hearing about some of your stories, which I'm sure we can go into in the future.
Definitely.
I don't know what else.
There was something else I wanted to talk to you about.
I guess like what's been your so we've been doing this now for about a year. I think we started out trying to be a little bit more professional about it. Like, Ed, you have to set these goals. You have to build these personas. What's been like one big takeaway so far? Like, just talking it out every week or so. What's something that you've really enjoyed, or something that you found like you didn't expect?
It's a good question. I mean, I haven't really thought about that too much. I just can really talk to the growth that I've had this year.
Yeah, for sure.
Because, coming from a background where I used to, I worked in a corporate environment, I never really did sales. I mean, I sold windows when I was in college, but I don't know how much of sales I would really consider that to be, because I now have spent a full year doing, hard money lending. And now I'm doing sales for real estate purchases and the hard money lending as well. But just being able to talk it out and grow and getting a second opinion, because again, I'm big in talking about issues and life with other people. I think that it's really good to get second and third opinions about things. I mean, you can kind of go too opinion crazy at times, which you need to just kind of take a step back and eventually trust your gut. But hearing what other people had to say that weren't necessarily doing what you were doing is fairly valuable. Yeah. So you had started some startups, as you were talking about before, or worked for some startups. So I thought it was really good to just bounce ideas off someone who had prior business experience, and just kind of grow from that aspect. That was really a big benefit to me.
Yeah, actually, I think I didn't even mention that. I think one of the best experiences I've ever had in my professional career was helping open a bike shop. And that was not something that I didn't get paid to do that. That was all on a volunteer. If anything, I spent a lot more money helping them get off the ground than I received in any financial benefit. But the experience I received was priceless. The bike shop is still open to this day, and opening up a retail store is way harder than it seems, even if it's small. But I mean, considering what you're going through now in terms of transitioning from a much more structured and stable job to something that you're kind of figuring out your business model for yourself, I think is really exciting. And you have a website that you recently kind of put up. Tell us a little bit about that.
So after leaving my prior employer, I decided that I wanted to start a website. Well, I've always had edhendrickson.com, just as something that I kept for the past year. I figured that one day I'd want to maybe do some wholesaling, which we can get into.
Yeah, what are your three later. Big things?
Fix and flip loans.
Fix and flip loans, okay.
Which would be the hard money. I also offer a service where I go to local sheriff sales and buy properties on behalf of investors who maybe don't know the sheriff sale process.
Oh, gotcha.
So I can help them out. And then the other is I just buy homes for cash from people who are in any situation, just either looking to have a quick sale, maybe it could be a divorce, it could be an unfortunate situation, somebody passed away. And then what I do with that property is I put it in touch with either another retail buyer or another investor who might be interested in doing a flip, or maybe I'll keep it for myself and do a flip.
Nice.
So those are kind of like my three products that I offer to the public that I'm willing to work on. So, Isaac had said to me, I mean, I would tell him I want to make this website. I was going to pay somebody to do it. And I've just always believed in, like, let me just pay somebody to do this. It's a lot easier. It's quicker. I don't have to worry about it.
True.
But he encouraged me to build the website myself.
Just so easy.
And it was not really easy at all.
It takes 20 hours.
I mean, it probably did take about 20 hours, actually. It's interesting you say that. So I built a basic website through WordPress. And it's actually, I mean, I'm pretty impressed with it for someone who's never built a website before. Yeah. So check it out at edhendrickson.com. Give me some feedback. There's a little contact section. I'm always open. Send anything, any questions.
Instagram, Facebook as well.
And it actually loops to my Instagram. which is also at Ed Hendrickson, and then my business Facebook, which is Ed Hendrickson THO.
Okay.
Or though.
Though.
For the Hendrickson organization.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah.
Getting all corporate.
But yeah, so just again, all those kinds of things. And one of the things I wanted to say to you, which is, kind of a growing experience for me, which many people who know my past, I'm a little bit more of a quick to answer or hot-headed more, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
Emotional. So throughout this past year's progress, I've learned to dial that back a little bit, that I need to take a step back before I make a quick reaction or answer to a question. So that was something that I grew with this year with a lot of our talking, because I would take the opportunity to mention a problem to you, discuss how I initially reacted or I was annoyed about this, and you just made me open my eyes to, take a step back, or, there's no need in getting frustrated at that person, as that just drives another issue, and I think that was really a huge benefit that I got from our process.
Nice. So. I feel like, all right, we're at 17 minutes or so. Maybe we wrap this up.
Awesome.
I have an idea, though, about how we can wrap this up. So one thing Ed and I kind of like to share with each other are different resources, whether that's podcasts or books or articles, things like that. So what's a book that you'd recommend or that you're reading right now that you think everybody else in the world should read?
I'm actually currently reading The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Ooh, nice. I've heard a lot of good things.
It's not what I thought it was.
Okay.
I thought it was just going to be how you can just basically not give a fuck about things. And it does have that. That is kind of the underlying meaning. But it just goes to talk to people worry about things that don't really matter, which causes them to worry about other things that don't matter.
Okay.
And you just spend so much energy worrying about stuff,
right,
that you could use that energy to be more positive.
Sure.
So I really thought that was it's been a good experience, actually. One of the quick blurbs I'll say is they talk about kind of this hell loop that you go in, and you worry about a worry about a worry about a worry, and then you realize none of this really matters.
Nice.
And you just spent 15 minutes stressing about something.
It just didn't matter.
So yeah. So how about yourself? What are you reading something right now? Or
Yeah. I'm reading a book called Lean UX, which may sound boring, but it's really focused on taking two kind of methodologies on accomplishing or solving problems. So a human-centered design approach, which a lot of people may call design thinking, and then agile methodology, which is really well known in the technology sphere, and really kind of combining the two to produce solutions that solve problems, not just from a technological, quick, iterative standpoint, but also you're getting a lot of, hey, I'm focused on the person, right? How can I make somebody's life easier? How can I make this application so intuitive that anybody can really pick it up? And it's all about kind of that quick, iterative steps like Agile talks about, and putting the person first. Not letting, we're so involved in technology these days, we forget that sometimes, humans need to use the technology. It's not just computer focused. Yeah. So Lean UX has been really interesting, and I recommend it for anybody that's looking to solve some tough problems.
Awesome.
So
sounds good.
This is our first time doing this. We're trying it out. Any feedback you guys have for us or anybody has for us, let us know. And
we look forward to having you guys follow us along throughout our process. Talking about the different things that we're encountering on a weekly basis. If anybody, as we get going, has any topics that they want us to talk about, maybe our experiences, we'd love to do that. So
we want to make this real, and so that's why you're seeing this on the couch.
On the couch, yeah, in my apartment here in Hoboken.
Woo!
So,
all right, talk to you guys.